2 days before I was due to give birth, my husband left with his ex, telling me to manage on my own and leaving me alone. But when he came back, his mother was waiting for him with some papers. Hi Reddit, I'm in a very complicated situation right now and I would really appreciate any kind of help or advice. My husband Jeremy, 35 years old, and I, 32 years old, have been together for 5 years, married for 2. We met at work, so I didn't know much about his past. Eventually, after dating for a while, we found out that both of us had been in serious relationships after graduating college. My ex and I were together for 4 years, 3 years in college and 1 after that, but then we broke up due to personal differences and lost contact. We had been broken up for almost 5 years when I met Jeremy. However, he was still in contact with his ex when we started dating, and they were genuinely good friends. His ex, let's call her Valerie, was his high school sweetheart. They had been together since they were 16, went through college together, and had been separated for 5 years when he met me. He told me that apparently they had to break up because she wanted to advance her career and for that she had to take a job in Australia. He didn't want a long-distance relationship. They tried to make it work for a few months, but after that, they mutually agreed to separate as it would be for the best. They were still part of the same circle, so they remained in contact and stayed friends. I was fine with that until I met his group of friends for the first time. After almost 9 months of dating, everyone gathered for dinner on New Year's Eve and he decided to bring me to introduce me to his friends. Valerie was also there, which was a surprise to me because I wasn't prepared to see her. Until then, I had only heard of her through Jeremy, and he only ever spoke well of her. At first, I didn't feel insecure or anything like that, but as soon as I started interacting with her, I realized her energy towards me was very different from what I expected. Jeremy had introduced her as someone very warm and laid back, but I didn't find her like that at all. She made some pretty hurtful comments about me in front of everyone, and everyone just laughed because apparently that was her sense of humor, but I didn't like it at all. I don't think anyone realized, because she disguised what she said as jokes. For example, she commented that she was surprised to see me in person because I looked different in photos, and now that she had seen me, she wasn't sure if I was Jeremy's type since he mainly preferred tall blondes, and I was neither. But she was. Everyone laughed because they thought she was joking. She also made some comments about how I was her successor, so she felt like she owed me some training on how to keep Jeremy happy. These were still harmless comments and I was willing to overlook everything because maybe she was one of those people with a very dry sense of humor, or maybe she really had a very strange sense of humor as everyone said. But then, while we were having drinks, she toasted to the fact that Jeremy had finally moved on and how happy she was for him. I thought that was kind until she said that if it weren't for her decision to move to Australia, I probably wouldn't even be there with them. Fortunately, no one laughed because it was quite awkward, but she quickly started laughing at her own strange comment and everyone felt forced to laugh so we could move on. It didn't go unnoticed to me that she still seemed somewhat possessive of Jeremy. Once we got home that day, I told him I didn't want her to talk to me again if he wanted to be with me. I told him I wasn't comfortable with his friendship with her because clearly she still hadn't gotten over him and had been quite rude to me. All the time we were together I had tolerated it respectfully once, but I wasn't going to do it again, and I was very clear about my boundaries because even in my previous relationships I had never had to deal with anything like that. Fortunately, Jeremy seemed to understand what I meant. He told me that he had also found her behavior very strange and had come to the conclusion that he would have to cut her out of his life because he didn't want problems in our relationship because of Valerie. So that was it. After that incident, I never heard Jeremy mention Valerie or talk to her again. He had told me he had blocked her, so I was satisfied with that explanation. I met his friends several times after that, and they also didn't mention Valerie to me, probably because Jeremy had told them I didn't like her. Things were going well until last week. Now I have been pregnant and last Sunday was my due date. Today is Thursday and Jeremy left to attend to Valerie because she had some emergency and needed him to be by her side. So he left 2 days before my due date and came back last night. We also had a big argument about it because I assumed he had blocked her everywhere and had not maintained contact with her. He told me that he had indeed done those things, but she had used a different number to contact him and was quite desperate. Apparently, she had been diagnosed with stage 2 brain cancer and really needed someone to be there for her. I was furious with him because there was no way I could accept the fact that he was willing to leave me alone when I was so far along in my pregnancy. Honestly, Valerie had just been diagnosed, and I could understand that it was hard for him to accept that someone he used to be close to might not survive, but it's not like she was going to die the next day. He could have gone after at least being there for me during the birth and seeing his child born. But the day he got this news, he had to leave immediately. I tried to tell him it was ridiculous to even consider leaving me alone in this condition, but he told me he would be back before I went into labor and that due dates aren't accurate, so I might still have another week or so. He told me to manage until he got back and then left for the airport that same day without even bothering to finish the conversation with me. He knew perfectly well that I had no family here. My parents lived in Iowa and I was completely dependent on him. After he left for the airport, I tried calling him several times, but his phone was off. I was really upset and desperate, so I called my mother-in-law instead because she has always been kind to me. As soon as I explained the situation to her in tears, she came immediately and tried to call him too, but of course his phone was off. She comforted me and stayed with me all that day because I was really upset and couldn't stop crying, since the pregnancy hormones were also affecting my emotions. We couldn't reach Jeremy until the next day, and even then, when we called, he didn't answer. He just sent both of us a text saying he would be back soon and hopefully before the baby was born. He apologized for having done this to me and said he would accept any punishment I considered appropriate for him when he returned. But for now, he simply had to be there for an old friend because she also had no family in Australia and her parents couldn't fly to see her because her father was also very sick, so she was really counting on him to be there at least to process it, and he just had to be there. That explanation did nothing for me and only made me even angrier that he thought it was more important to be there for an old friend because he considered a cancer diagnosis an emergency, while ignoring the person he should really have been there for, his wife. I don't think a cancer diagnosis is more urgent than an actual pregnancy. What was he going to do about it? Cure her instantly? No, right? So he should have stayed here with me. My mother-in-law thought the same, and when he sent me that message, she asked me very directly if I wanted to leave him. Without thinking much, I just said yes. Then she spoke with her lawyer and asked him to draft divorce papers for me along with an agreement to revoke Jeremy's parental rights. She told me that if he returned before the due date, then I was free to decide if I wanted to file for divorce and end this, or if I preferred to talk to him and clear things up before doing anything. If he couldn't do it, then it was very clear what I had to do. She had raised Jeremy alone and had been a single mother, so she could understand why she was so determined about this. She even told me she would make sure that Jeremy paid child support, unlike his father, who didn't even bother to meet Jeremy after he was born and left his mother alone to raise him. She promised me I would not go through the same as she did and stayed by my side throughout the week. During the following days, none of us contacted Jeremy. On Monday, I went into labor. My mother-in-law tried calling him at least to let him know that I was giving birth, but even then, he didn't answer. She decided not to text him about it because it made no sense. My parents had flown in the day before, so I was very lucky, and they were all there for me. But still, I felt Jeremy's absence a lot that day, and I made the decision that no matter what happened when he returned, I could never see him the same way again. So I filled out the divorce papers and told the lawyer to file them on my behalf to start the process as soon as possible. I literally did that. 3 hours after giving birth and I was barely able to lift the pen, but my mother-in-law told me that if I wanted to be happy and be a good mother to my daughter, I first had to be good to myself, and I couldn't do that if I stayed with a man who had made it clear that his obligations to Valerie mattered more to him than I did. After giving birth to our daughter, I didn't even call him. My mother-in-law, my parents, and I were all together at home. My parents are supposed to leave tomorrow, so after that, it will just be me and my mother-in-law. Today I told everyone my decision to leave him because he didn't even try to get in touch with me, even though he had promised that he would be back before the due date. He simply spent a week with Valerie. Anyway, last night he came home quite late. I opened the door and he instantly hugged me, but I pushed him away and told him I didn't want to have anything to do with him. Upon hearing the doorbell and seeing the door open, my mother-in-law came into the room with the papers and literally threw them in her son's face. She said she wanted him to leave that very instant. She added that she didn't care where he spent the night, she just wanted him out of the house because I needed peace and quiet after having given birth a few days ago and he hadn't even been present for it. She also told him that I had already filled out the divorce papers and needed him to sign the papers to give up his parental rights over our daughter. He was in shock and couldn't say anything for the first few minutes. I decided to leave the room as soon as possible because my mother-in-law was right. I was still weak and needed time to recover physically. I went to another room because I really didn't want to talk to Jeremy, and seeing him seriously weakened my resolve. I didn't want this to get any harder for me. Then I heard yelling and realized Jeremy had started to argue with his mother. I decided not to intervene and stayed out of it with my daughter. After a few minutes, I started to hear Jeremy calling me, demanding that I talk to him and at least let him see his daughter because he said I owed him that. That bothered me, so I went out to see him after putting my daughter in the crib. I told him that after what he had done, I didn't owe him absolutely anything. He had made the conscious decision not to be with me knowing that I was close to my due date and had chosen not to be present at his child's birth. He had left me completely alone and I had been lucky that my mother-in-law was there for me, so I owed him absolutely nothing. I told him that at that moment I didn't care. Our daughter was asleep and I didn't want to wake her up, so I wanted him to leave and we could discuss this later. In the morning he finally left, but I could see he had tears in his eyes as he walked away. He tried to talk to me one last time, but I walked away from him and told him I wanted him to leave. We were quite tired, so we went to sleep. But this morning he came back. I finally told him that for me it was already over. It had been over since the moment he left with Valerie, and there was no way he could say anything that would make me change my mind. My mother-in-law was in the same room, but I had told her that I wanted to have this conversation with him alone and clear it up once and for all. Then he literally started crying and begging, and my mother-in-law had to leave the house with the baby so our daughter wouldn't have to hear that since he was being quite loud. He insisted that he had only gone because Valerie had begged him and said she was on her deathbed. He spent a week there because she had no family and was very lonely. He spent all those days trying to comfort her and be there for her. He said it was all purely platonic, but I wasn't there, so who knows what was going on. I told him it no longer mattered and I wanted him to leave. But then he said that even though I had decided to divorce him, he thought it was a great punishment to take away the chance to be a father. He wanted me to reconsider that or otherwise he would have to fight for custody. Even so, it would be very unlikely for him to get custody of his daughter because, in the first place, he hadn't even been present at the birth, so we could use that against him, and he was aware of that. Besides, she was literally a newborn baby, so she needed me much more than her father. He begged me for a chance because despite everything, he really just wanted a family. He finally left but told me to think about it. Now I'm not so sure what to do. This is something very important and it affects people's lives, so I just want to be sure of what I'm doing before moving forward. So am I the bad person for divorcing my husband and telling him to give up his parental rights over our daughter because he missed the birth of our daughter? To be with his ex who said she was on her deathbed. I've made a decision and I'm going to proceed with the divorce, but I'm still considering whether I want full custody or not. Hi, it's been 4 days since I made the post and Jeremy has shown up at the house every day to apologize and literally beg for forgiveness. Each day it gets harder for me to reject him, but I know I must. Fortunately, my mother-in-law has been with me every step of the way and is also helping me take care of the baby. My parents had to go back home 2 days after I gave birth, and she has been kind enough to leave her own home and move here with me long-term because she knows I'm going to need all the help I can get. I've told her that even if I decide not to give Jeremy full or partial custody, she will still have every right to come see her granddaughter whenever she wishes. I've even asked her opinion about this whole custody issue, but she has left that decision to me and told me that she knows I will make the right choice for both of us, just like I did with the divorce. But I'm still struggling to make a decision. It doesn't get any easier because Jeremy keeps showing up every day and every time he comes, I feel tempted to forgive him and take everything back. But I know I can't do that, especially after everything I've been through because of Valerie, which has always been a painful subject for me, and he didn't even care when I was pregnant with his child. To be honest, I don't even know if they've been in contact with each other or if there was anything going on between them in the past few months, because I simply can't trust anything he says anymore. So far his apologies have always been the same. He keeps repeating what he said the first time he came back home after visiting Valerie: nothing happened, it was all platonic, and he was only there to take care of her because she said she was on her deathbed, and as her friend, he felt he had to be there. Every time I have to tell him the same thing, it doesn't matter anymore, because I've made my decision and now I'm going to leave him. It's really sad, but that's how things are. A few days ago I posted an update saying I had decided to proceed with the divorce, but I still couldn't decide if I wanted to request full custody of my daughter or not. But now I think I know what to do. For almost 5 consecutive days, Jeremy showed up every day without fail to apologize for his actions and try to get me to come back to him. But after that, he suddenly stopped showing up. I found it strange, but at least I felt relieved because I thought I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore and could think clearly. But it seems that will no longer be possible, because after he stopped coming, other people started sending me messages saying that what I was doing was terribly wrong and immoral and that they never expected me to act this way. Immediately after, his friends started bombarding me with messages, and I'm not just talking about the group he usually hangs out with, but every person who went to school or college with him. I think he gave them a template to send me messages like a petition or something. At first I blocked people left and right, but then they started creating fake accounts to send me the same things over and over again. You can only block so many people. Besides, it's not just that I'm dealing with all this emotional trauma and processing what's happening to me. I'm also exhausted from giving birth and trying to be present for my newborn daughter, so all of this is really draining and the last thing I needed. If he really cared, he wouldn't be putting me in this situation at such a delicate stage of my life. It's obvious he doesn't care about anyone but himself. So I no longer think I need to worry about what to do with the custody of my daughter. I'm going to apply for full custody and that's it. Of course he still has the papers and can waive his rights if he decides to. I spoke to my lawyer and this is happening. The messages I've been receiving are not nice and I know for sure that he wrote the template message and told his friends to send it to me. It really reflects what he believes more than anything else. And if this is what he thinks of me, I don't think we need to be together at all. What upset me the most was one line in the messages that said, "We never expected you to be the kind of person who would use her daughter as a bargaining chip to punish her partner and play mind games like this." Seriously? He really thinks I'm using our daughter to punish him for what he did? I don't think he understands how marriages or children work, because if he did, he never would have said that. That in particular hurt me a lot and helped me make a decision. When I showed those messages to my mother-in-law, she also got very angry and said she was going to contact him and scold him. But I asked her not to do it because it simply wasn't worth it. If we tried to confront him about this, he would just deny having anything to do with it, even though it's clear that all his friends are sending me similar messages and he must be behind it. To be honest, I don't even understand why he felt the need to involve his friends in all this, because it's not like I'm going to read their messages and instantly change my mind. Their opinions literally make no difference to me because they're not my friends. I've never been close to any of them, so they can think whatever they want of me and I won't care. I guess he thought that if an overwhelming number of people started messaging me about this, then I would give in to the pressure or something like that. But I'm afraid he really doesn't know me at all because I'm not the kind of person who bends under pressure. I didn't even change my mind when he himself showed up every day and begged me for forgiveness because I knew that letting him back into my life wouldn't be good for him or our daughter. I felt terrible about it, but I still went ahead because I don't bend easily. After so much time together, I think he should have an idea of what kind of person I am, but it's very clear that he doesn't. And each day it becomes more obvious to me that I'm doing the right thing by choosing to leave him. So not only his friends, but even if every person he knows starts sending me messages about this, I will not change my mind. In fact, this situation that he has created has only made me feel more firm in what I'm doing. And I know that as long as the people I love are on my side, I don't have to worry about any of this. So the legal proceedings for the divorce and the custody agreement will start in a couple of days. Today Jeremy has decided not to contest the divorce, but he is demanding at least partial custody of his daughter. We'll see how that works out, but I don't think I want to implement shared custody, at least not until our daughter is old enough to decide for herself. My differences with my soon-to-be ex don't have to involve her, so that's what we're going to negotiate, and I'm very glad I made this decision for myself. Now that it's finally happening and I realize how real all of this is, I thought I'd be scared, but I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I think part of this may also be due to a message I received from Valerie yesterday where she told me that she really didn't want to be a homewrecker but that she really needed someone by her side since her parents wouldn't be there for her. Jeremy was the only other person she could think of. She also told me that for the past few years she had tried to contact him several times and he had always rejected her, saying that I wouldn't approve. But she knew that her oldest friend in the world would always be there for her, especially if she was sick, so she contacted him. She regretted having caused so much trouble in my marriage but thinks I should let him maintain his individuality instead of being so controlling. So she was right in the fact that he hadn't blocked her at all and they had indeed stayed in contact, maybe not in the way I thought, but at least they talked to each other. The worst part was that she also told me they had shared a moment together and ended up kissing for a couple of minutes, but after that Jeremy pulled away from her, saying that he couldn't do this, especially while his wife was with their daughter. She told me that he hadn't let the kiss last more than a couple of minutes and that's how loyal he was to me, as if that should mean something. It was ridiculous, but she was right about everything. So now getting the divorce and custody on my terms should be a piece of cake now that I know these things. I've spoken to my lawyer and we've also adjusted our petition to demand a little more of everything because now I feel like I deserve it after having been so clearly betrayed. Anyway, I feel very sure about what I'm doing and I know things are going to turn out fine. I'll keep you posted on what happens. Thank you so much for being here and following my story. After some months between lawyers, we have reached the end of the divorce and I have also obtained full custody. My ex-husband can visit her under supervision, but I think he will give up that possibility because at a final hearing he said that either he had joint custody or he wanted nothing at all. But well, that makes things even easier for me. My mother-in-law has been with me all this time, taking care of my daughter and helping me at home, but a few weeks ago she returned to her house and I have started living alone with my daughter. I'm working from home for now and I've been able to manage despite everything. If I have nothing new to update, I will not post here again. So now you know. It has been 3 years since the last time I posted, well maybe a few more months too. It's not like I made the exact calculation. I didn't even know if I would find my password because I've changed computers, but luckily now they are stored in the cloud and that helped me get back in for this update. But going to what matters, today when I was shopping with my daughter at the mall, she's almost 4 years old now, I saw my ex-husband. I hadn't seen him in a long time because after the divorce he moved out of the city and we had no contact. As you can imagine, no, seeing him is not the reason for this update, but rather seeing who he was with. It was Valerie. Yes, the same Valerie who was supposedly on her deathbed. Either she had a miraculous recovery and my ex-husband really has healing powers, or it was all a lie. Call me crazy, but I believe the second option is the correct one. But luckily he didn't see us, and we left the place quickly because I wanted to avoid a confrontation with him and having to explain to my daughter who he was. She is 4 years old, but she's already at an age where she can understand things. After that, I called my ex-mother-in-law, who is now kind of a friend to me. She told me that although she hasn't been talking to her son either, she called some distant relatives and they told her that he was married to Valerie and they even have a baby together. But she doesn't know why he's in town or anything like that. If I can find out more, I'll let you know. It's June 30th, 2024. Now I know why my ex is in town, and it's nothing good as some of you predicted. She wants to see her daughter and also introduce her to her new little brother. I know because they went to my mother-in-law's house and told her all of this. They went to her first to see if my mother-in-law could talk to me and convince me to let him see my daughter and be part of her life. But my mother-in-law told him that she wasn't going to do any of that and that she knew very well I was going to say the same. So they left, and he told my mother-in-law that if I changed my mind, to call him since he had left a phone number to be contacted. He also told her that they were going to stay a couple more days in town and hoped to see my daughter before leaving. That was already a few days ago, so my ex must have left by now. I also contacted my lawyer and since he finally signed to give up his parental rights, I have no obligation toward him. So that's it, unless my ex comes back. I hope this really is my last update. Thank you.